It was on the college.
Oh, it was.
We were the last.
Oh, something sticky in there. Right? Well, I think we can get started. I'm a little rough on the timetable. I think most people know who I am, but I want what we did last time, which was how long we've lived here and why this project was of interest to them. So I'll start first, and then I'm going to go next to this guy over here, who's my husband. He's going to be walking around taking photographs today. His name is Noel Glazer. My name is Nancy Hines Glazer, and I'm a resident going on 24 years, I believe, perhaps 25 soon, of South Orange. We live over on Sherman Place, which is the last block in South Orange, heading that direction. And one of the things that I became most enamored of is in doing a show on the murals, the historic murals in town for Meet the Artist, my local cable show. I developed this whole understanding of the area that I hadn't had, and I lived here almost 22 years. And I made the assumption, if I didn't know a lot about this town, because I consider myself to kind of talk and hear, I bet there are a lot of people that didn't know, and what a shame, because what a great history and legacy we have. And I was dedicated at that point to making sure that no generations after this missed out. And so we started this project with a group of 30 to 40 volunteers, South Orange Productions Film Collaboration Group, in May of 2001, right prior to September 11th. I pitched it to the township trustees, and they gave us some seed money to begin the project, and we are grateful we have two members of the trustees here today. And I set about forming a group, and I didn't really know how this would turn out or if we'd even accomplish anything. I just knew it had to get done, and I was going to do it, and that was it. So we started a group. We produced a 42-minute demonstration tape, taking certain segments of the town. And from that has evolved our Sound Bites and Bagel Bites, which is why you're here today. And the reason we're doing these, we're going to cover each neighborhood, is because we feel that there's a lot of oral history and oral tradition that will get lost. There will be stories that are missed. And the older I get, the more I realize that every day is very important. And so that's why you're all here. That's a little bit about me and my husband. And Noel, go ahead and say a little bit about who we are and why you're here today.
Well, first of all, I love Nancy. I'm helping her out. But I went to the other one, and I heard all the elders talk about their little area and things I learned about this town. I love this town. And the history is so rich. And history is people, people's stories about your neighbors, about the festivals, about history that goes on in the country, how it affects a small town like South Orange. What's also so wonderful is ever since Nancy started this, I have a 90-year-old mother, and I visit her every Sunday. And I started writing things down because I don't want to miss anything out. And I said, I never learned all these things about our own personal history. So if it's okay with you, I'll be photographing this. Parts of this will go into the film. And it's so wonderful for our future children, to learn about the history of South Orange. And the history is all about us, our people. So thank you.
What a good son.
I'm Mark Mosner. I've lived in South Orange since 1985. I grew up in the city. My wife was born and raised in South Orange and graduated Columbia High School in '71. Her mother grew up in South Orange. My in-laws obviously grew up in South Orange. And my father-in-law was on the planning board back in the late 50s or early 60s and actually saw plans for the quarry that were presented to the village back then. I know people think it's a hot issue now. It was a hot issue back then. 40 years later, it's still a hot issue. So you know that there's a lot of things that happen and go on. And I'm just really here to learn more about that.
I'm David Kozo. This is my wife, Caitlin Mollison. We've lived in South Orange almost 4 years now. We live, I guess, what you would call West Montrose, Clark Street, up near the park. And we've got involved with the movie project with Nancy back in summer 2001. And we'd like to know more about the town. We're busy. We don't necessarily have a lot of time to do it. We were expecting our first child in about a month. So we're looking forward to that. And we would like to know more about the town. And we are interested in the history of it. And growing up, I grew up in Edison and Woodbridge, and I never really knew much about the history there. And there doesn't seem to be much, frankly, because it seems to be all shopping malls, basically. But here I do feel like there is more of a sense of history in the older homes, and we would like to know more about that. Katie grew up in Manhattan, and we, as I said, we moved here summer of 1999.
I'll just add to that I'm on the board of South Orange Productions, and I really enjoyed every part of this project, and I really enjoyed the first breakfast that I went to, and over the Gaslight Commons. I learned a lot, and it's nice to be part of a town that has such a rich history and a good sense of community.
My name is Eddie Sullivan. I've been living in South Orange for 25 years now. And I graduated from Lady Soros and Seton Hall Prep. And just wanted to say it's a really great town to grow up in. And I really enjoyed growing up here. And basically...
Mark Matthews, and I also graduated Our Lady Soros Seton Hall Prep. My grandfather moved to South Orange in 1948 and grew up on Hillside Place, then Scotland Road, and now I'm a real estate agent in town. And my broker bought my grandfather's house, so I get to go back in there and see how he's lovingly restored the house. And it is a fantastic town. I love the diversity. I like that people are passionate about things, whether they think it's good or bad. People get involved, and so I'm glad to be a part of that.
And he's also the chair of the Spirit of South Orange Committee, which is part of our film group's archive, Steve. And why don't you just say a word about that? There's a letter out there that we passed out, but just say a word about that, Mark.
Right. There's a letter here about the Spirit of South Orange, and what that is, we're looking to get information from synagogues, churches, religious organizations, and bodies, and to highlight people in their congregations that made an impact on the congregation or the town as a whole, and events in the history that were significant for the town. So what we'll be doing is sending a letter directly to people at each of those churches and synagogues and asking for what we're calling point people to kind of collect that information and hopefully get some of that into the movie.
Alan Rosen, I'm a resident of the town now, 35 years. First 26 in the Montrose area on Grove Road, and the last 8, more or less, in North Newstead on Crestwood. I'm very interested in history in general, and about 3-4 years after we moved into town, got interested in the old Stonehouse project before it became a project. At that time it was the Board of Education headquarters. And when the head of the history department at Columbia was interested in getting some Montrose residents to research information on the old stone house, which is the oldest, at least the wall is the oldest remaining.
In New Jersey, that's still standing.
Standing residence in Essex County, possibly in New Jersey. And currently, among other things on the Board of Trustees, I head up the Cable TV Committee. I'm blessed to have Nancy on the committee, and I'm a very enthusiastic supporter of all the projects. And I'm here because I'm interested. The first bagels and sound bites was extremely interesting, and I'm hoping this one and the future ones will be equally interesting.
Okay.
Who?
Beatrice, you have to turn around though.
A little bit.
Beatrice Queedick. I guess I've been here since I'm 15 years old, right on Church Street, and had my 2 girls here. And I've lived here all my life, almost all my life, you know. And I lived on Church Street. I went up to Ridgewood Road. And I came back down where I'm at now on 3rd Street, and that's where I stayed. That's it. I'm Ruth Mitchney. Beatrice is my mother. I've lived here all my life. I went to nursery school, middle school, graduated from Columbia. My children all went to Arlene Road and Columbia. Doing everything, all the sporting, and it's great for my kids. Swimming pool, we have a swimming pool, and when we had all our life, we didn't really realize that we weren't rich people. We had everything. Community now is a great place in all life. And someone could always go and everyone was sort of took care of you. They were like Mr. Gonzalez and
Farrell?
Farrell, grade 2 over there. It was just like a big family, you know. Police too. I know when I was growing up, the police were like your friends, you know, really. We're like not afraid of them or anything like that. And my children had very great experiences growing up, very positive things. They were out playing here alone, and it was like safe. Very, very safe. I always felt safe, and I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. It's changed, but I still enjoy it.
And speak up nice and loud so we can hear everybody.
Hi, I'm Maria Morrison Henniberg. I live in Maplewood, New Jersey, not South Orange. I lived for 12 years in Jersey City. I with my mom, Evelyn Morrison, with me. And I think we're both here because we just really love history. And I love the town I live in South Orange, and very the local history. So, where we live. Yeah. A couple of things that have been said, no different from what's being said in Jersey City. There are lots of people that still love the city. The expression now is you can't live there anymore, it's too expensive. And but I've heard some stories that just the little bits, it's almost like I could take you and bring you back to Jersey City. It's exactly the same. I want to go to Jersey City.
And,
I can't afford to live there anymore. But I just, as Maria has said, we do love history, and that's why we're here. She had told me about what a great time she had when she came to the first one, and she said, Mom, we really like it. Come and listen to what people have to say, and that's why I'm here.
and I should also mention that Maria's a writer. And after our last sound bites, went home and did some research. And I think at some point I may ask you to tell what and reveal what the research showed us about the area we talked about. But and you also.
No, it's funny, when she's talking about this, we had to go up to, her sister, my daughter, lives in Palisades, New York. And in the church, which is where Aaron Burr was put on trial, there's a big, big map. And we found the harbor that was here, that Maria has talked about.
I read an article in Matters magazine about a harbor that had existed in the 1700s, and I had great difficulty getting a map that substantiated this. And the only map that I was able to find was from the 1850s. But inside of this church in Palisades, New York, was the map, and you could see the harbor. Afterwards.
She was telling me about it, and I'm looking at this, and I said, hey, come here, and look, this is it, and that's it. But we had to go how many miles up and found it there. So history really does go far.
Dorothy Giordano. I was born on Valley Street, South Orange. I never left, still here. My husband was the fire chief here for many years. And like Greenie said, it was a wonderful place to grow up. We had
empty lots that we were able to run around on. And it was a great place, it still is, I'm still happy to be there. That's about it. Virginia Troncone, I'm Dorothy's sister, and I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and we all were Catholic. I wasn't born here, I came here 2 months old from Italy, and I'll be living here almost 83 years. And all my brothers and sisters found jobs in South Orange. They were firemen. One was a policeman for a short while. And I worked in South Orange all my life. Well, when I was able to work, that is. And I always loved South Orange. I graduated from here. I graduated from middle school on Academy Street and from Columbia. And I work in South Orange, and I live here, and I love it.
And Ginny, I had a chance to talk to you on the phone because I was interested in your area of your house, and I hope we talk a little bit about that as we go along, right on Valley. And I didn't even know you guys were related, and all of a sudden I got lucky. So.
Okay, you go skipping me. I was born in Europe. I live in South London about 47 years. I don't know too many. You know, I still live over here, you know, for 47 years. Europe, and I stay over here. I sold my house, and I still live over here.
And where did you come from 47 years ago? Italy. Okay.
In 1956. Okay?
We're glad you're here.
Yeah. Can't tell you too much. I was put up on the inside, not outside, you know. But my husband that was born and raised over here, he graduated Columbia School, you know, in 1953. I had 2 children. They went to Lady Soul School. They went to Columbia School and graduated. Okay. Hi, Allison Gray. I grew up on Village Road, up above here, above the church, and graduated from here, Olivia Falls, Columbia High School. Then I was gone for a while, and then I came back, and I live on 3rd Street, next door to Irene and her mother, and I've always loved South Orange. Growing up here was the best, really was the best. Things have changed. Some things have changed for the better here, and other things I would like to see come about, which haven't. But it's still a good town, still a good place to grow up.
And sir? Nice and loud, so we...
My name is Owen Carswell. I'm temporarily placed in a house on the corner of Irvington Avenue and Prospect Street, Village Gardens. And I can't wait to get back in the house. It burned down.
On Academy.
Yeah. So I worked for about 30 years in Brothings. But as I say, I'm from West Orange, and I moved here trying to sort of...
The dame next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Very nice.
Wonderful.
And there's nothing more to talk with me. I've been on Police Reserve, and I was on South Orange Rescue Squad. So that's 30 years altogether. So every time she was working and she called home, oh, Teddy's not here, he's on the rescue squad. So I heard about it when I got home.
Glad to have
Okay.
Helen, you're on, Helen. Tell us a little bit about your...
We raised 5 children in South Orange. 3 generations went to Columbia High School. I also worked in Grunnings. My father was manager. That's where we met. And I remember the trolley cars we used to have in town. Many other things. And since our house fire, I'm very adamant about not leaving South Orange. So we plan to be back in the fall.
And you've been a crossing guard for a lot of years.
Crossing guard for 24 years.
Librarian as well, or no? But so everybody knows your face, and you're always up at the top corner, right?
Right.
Right.
I'm Randy Carswell, one of their daughters, and lived in South Orange most of my life. Grew up and went to First Street School, middle school, junior high, and graduated from Columbia. And had great times here. You know, always went to the pool during the summer, and just you could feel free walking around town. You know, you didn't have to be afraid of anything. And of course, went to Brennan's. And moved out for a little while after I got married, and then moved back and raised my son here. And he graduated Columbia.
And so that's pretty much everybody in the room except the lady behind the camera, who is the most important person I know because she, as she says, she made the coffee.
Almost.
Mary Kay, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself this time?
A little bit?
A little bit.
Well, I think we moved here in 1970. We have 5 children. It was just a super town for our kids. It was such a family-orientated area, which is, not the whole world isn't family-orientated. And I remember the place we came from, you could only have 2 children. And right there, you know, you have, you know, don't you ever hear about birth control? And I was really happy to move here and have all these large families that were here. But I'm actually helping Nancy with this movie. I'm on the South Orange Historical. I really was involved with the old stone house a lot. That was a lot of fun, and that's what really got me interested in history. But I think the history we're recording here is really more important because it's never going to be lost now. It's going to be over at the library. You all should do this with your families. This is the best. I mean, get this information now before it's too late. It's really nice, and I am really happy to be involved in it. And that's it.
And you were involved in starting the first search for the Old Stone House project almost 13, 14 years ago, is that right?
Quite a few years
Yeah.
longer, like almost 15, 16 years.
Well, I've been requested by the guys in the peanut gallery there to move forward because nobody can hear anything. Can we manage that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Are you guys hearing okay at your table? Yeah. It's just this table. Okay, so if you guys just want to come up to this table.
When I was a young girl, South Orange was a real little country town, and we had many, many fine stores. And there was nothing more beautiful than going on Christmas Eve and doing all your shopping in South Orange with the snow coming down.
Ooh.
It was real picture perfect.
Wonderful. Well, as we're getting settled, most of you have that list of questions which came up from the last Sound Bites and Bagel Bites. And I hope that you will fill them out to the best of your ability and return them. What I wanted to do today is move forward, whatever you need to do. We have you all now up with your faces. You need to move forward, ladies? Come on up. What we need to do, in fact, part of why we're having this on a Saturday instead of a Sunday is that Ginny, who I met, and Dorothy, who are sisters, have a big event tomorrow. We wanted to make sure to capture the story of their growing up because they grew up in a house on Valley before there was full development in the area. And I'm sure that most of us can't even envision what it was like growing up when there was nothing on Valley Street by your home. So I want to start a little bit. I'm covering the area from Valley to Academy.
In the basement, things that were very common amongst Italians to have that second kitchen downstairs. And it was just so wonderful going into this house that had been discussed with this history and going through and really knowing why certain things were the way they were. And just seeing this house, and there's about, I guess, 6 or 7 houses in a row right on South Ridgewood. That was fun, just off South Orange Avenue.
And also, you discovered that in the 1890 census, in the Book of the Oranges, the, what did you call it? The Registry of the Oranges? I don't recall what you found, but...
I'm on the list.
Okay, you went, I think, to the library, and in 1890, 3rd Street
Different
Church...
names.
Right.
Oh, when I was looking, when I was talking to Nancy afterwards, I'd gone through the registry looking for some information in the library. And South Orange and the Oranges has the directory that's in, Maplewood Library, and it lists all the people and all the occupations. And as you're going through them, you can see, at that time there were a lot of Irish, and they were all the Irish workers, and they list what your occupations were. So there were the laborers listed there, and it was just completely fascinating. It just kind of backed up what we had been discussing.
Right, and so that by the 10s and 20s, the population seemed to have changed.
So then you start seeing the Italian names coming in. And
That was at the library?
yeah, it's at the library. I can show you.
Yeah, I want to see.
Yeah, I can show you that. That's a fun thing to know about.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, you're going to become our resident historian, so.
Now, Mark, did you see the house I'm talking about? The one in South Ridgewood? 1817?
Oh, it's like a 2-bedroom?
Yeah, it's 3 bedrooms upstairs. It just came back on the market. What was
Yes.
interesting, like, you can see, like, the handrails are lower,
Low
everything is
ceilings.
smaller, low ceilings. It has a lot of the original details, so it makes it quite interesting.
Then it is quite possible I'm Italian, right? Because I'm short. But anyway, I'm just the wannabe. But anyway, okay, what I wanted to do is to start talking a little bit about Valley Street, if we could get Ginny and Dorothy to talk. Is there anyone else from the Valley Street area here? Besides you. Yeah, I want you to tell us a little bit about where your house was growing up and what it was like for you.
Well, we had to farm, really. We had almost an acre of land, and we were kind of isolated up there, which was beautiful. We weren't on the street. We were up the driveway, right off the Lackawanna Place. If you drive down the street and you look up, there's a nice red house. That's the original house that we all grew up in. And they gave me 8 granddaughters, who in turn gave me 6 great-grandkids already. So we did pretty well in South Orange. And I remember a lot of the things. I even remember Valley Street being widened. Used to be, closed in. They took our little sidewalk piece away. And they had the trolleys, didn't they? Yeah, they had the trolleys. And I'm getting nervous, and I'm sorry. But I do remember a lot of things. We had a nice plant down on Lackawanna Place. They used to make their own ice and everything. And I miss our cemetery. I wish we still had it. Yeah. Well, there's so many changes, I really can't remember all of them right now. But if I do, I'll let you know, okay?
But Dorothy, you let us know a little bit about how it was for your mom.
It was great. Like I say, we were kind of isolated up there. We had my mother thought she had a farm. We had chickens and ducks and geese and a couple of goats and tomatoes. And it was really a different life. And yes, there was a nice house on Lackawanna Place because I unfortunately got stuck in there for 5 minutes. My father was running the ice house at the time, and I went in there to get a chocolate milk. He didn't realize it, and the door closed. Fortunately, someone needed a piece of ice pretty quick, and he opened the door, and there I was. And Valley Street certainly wasn't as heavily trafficked as it is today. You could cross back and forth or buy a Charlotte Russe from the grocery stores that were there. And there is a lot of changes, but it was a great place, still is, and Valley Street has changed very, very much. And there's no more animals up at my sister's. Oh, we have raccoons, so that's it.
I'm very interested in the trolley. Where did the trolley run?
It ran right on Valley Street, right to Maplewood. I don't know where it is.
Into Maplewood.
Yeah. To Milburn Loop, yeah.
And as little children, was it hard to get on the ferry or
Well,
the trolley?
we really didn't go anywhere. We just, we didn't ride the trolley. We just saw it going by. Just like now, we see the trains going by. They're walking on a place from where I live. We can see the tracks. We didn't ever go anywhere. We just walked wherever we went.
And where was the bakery that you got the Charlotte?
Oh,
What's there now?
I think we have the original little mall right on Valley Street, Rolling Avenue.
Yeah.
There still is a group of 4 stores. Well, there used to be a confectionery store on the very corner. Then there was an A&P, real new A&P right next to it. Then a butcher shop, and then the bakery. And they had the most delicious cakes. They really were. It was run by a German family, and it was really good. All of South Orange was good.
2 or 3 cents, you had a beautiful dessert.
It's practice. Pick it up.
You could get it in like
And
a
a
grocery
grocery
store,
store,
mom and pop, or a bakery on Bullfrog. I know, we didn't have to go there to get the chocolate. And Mikey, I guess it was delivered maybe with the bread or whatever.
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
go right into Mary's store and buy a Charlotte. They have two little grocery stores.
Now, I know the stores today are on Valley Street and South Orange Avenue. Were there other areas where there were stores?
And Irvington Avenue.
And Irvington
Yes,
Avenue,
yes.
that's right.
There used to be an arcade where Rite Aid is.
Church Street.
Rite Aid is, it was an arcade? No, that was an Acme Supermarket.
I could maybe help you a little bit with the trolley. Because I can remember when they came in the first time the bus came here at Choicewood, we went to the trolley on the bus, and it was 5 cents. And it went from Milburn Loop, I believe, down to Dover Street. Went across Valley, down to Orange Avenue, to Dover Street.
Well, Helen, since you brought us through the trolley, why don't we'll move from Valley Street for just a moment over to Academy Street, which is where you are located.
Well, actually, the neighborhood I live in hasn't changed much at all. It's predominantly the same. When we bought our house 42 years ago, we had Irish, Jewish, every combination of anyone that would do for us. It's still that way. And that basically didn't go far. Oh, yes. There was an old farmhouse across the street from our house, which we all fought to keep, but we didn't win. now it's 2 bedrooms. And there also was a house on this corner, right across the street from the school, which they used during servicemen. And there were 3 houses on the street.
It was the recruitment office where people went to sign up for the war. And I think it had, that was during World War II, right prior to World War II.
Right.
But I don't know about prior to that. I think it was a residence.
It was.
Sometime before that.
And then there were 3 homes on the park. Most of the Capitol Street estates, things that were traffic. When we moved in, my children would still play baseball occasionally in the street. And we always liked it because just the square going down to Valley Street, your children were always in somebody's backyard. Just for the mountain. We still try and have block picnic. There's a lot of evenings out on the street.
We do make a lot of fun.
And I think that's very good.
Mr. Carson? Yes. Since we were told that only women came to these events, I'd like to know why you felt you wanted to come and share your stories or hear about it.
I wanted to see if I pick up some news.
Share information. Yeah. One of the things I understood is that at least in this area of town, Roland was the last really developed block.
I was
during
born
the
on Roland. That was my first.
Right, during the 1870s map from the South Orange Historical Preservation, or the 1894 map, and it was called Ludlam
Road.
Ludlam Road.
Ludlam Lane.
And so that was really one of the last developed streets. And the block I live on, I don't even know if it was there at the time.
And then a lot of sections, now each section had a name, and it was Cabbage Town, which I assume they grew a lot of cabbages on the farms. It was Fort Hill, which is up Irvington Avenue. Anybody know any other names? I'm going to think of Cabbage Town and Fort Hill.
Different sections of town, like she said, Fort Hill and Cabbage, I don't remember Cabbage.
Cabbage Town's where we came from.
I remember Fort Hill.
Yeah, no, we came from Cabbage Town.
We did?
No, they- So I can only assume that they were farms.
Well, and one of the interesting things about this immediate area is unlike other areas of town, it seems as though the church really helped to develop the neighborhood. So the church came here, I think, because the land was available, but it helped develop the neighborhood. And so you saw that people who moved to this general area often went to Our Lady of Sorrows, so that you could really see it flesh out and develop in the neighborhood.
Now, in our immediate neighborhood, when we moved in, everybody else moved in with 4 or 5 children, and they all stayed until they died. People don't move out.
And how about you? What made you decide you wanted to come today? Ms. Carzon?
Well, I grew up on the Catholic Street, and, I feel a lot of my stuff outside, feeling pretty safe, And I grew up in the basically 60s during the time, and I saw quite a bit of change through the catalog of the schools. We had a couple of nice schools in town, Jerry, Boy Scout, Inside, Speller, of course, Garden, and the bakery.
And everybody knows the promotions, right?
And you just don't have any of those places.
You could buy everything you want in the South Orange. If you really wanted to be allowed to go down there. All dressed up in white gloves and high heels.
Well, that's why, I wanted to come up and kind of remind myself,
And this table over here doesn't have any connection to here, am I right? Are there any specific questions that you might have for any of the folks here? Mary Kay, you don't get to ask one yet. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, Dave.
When you say you were isolated, your houses were isolated, how far, like the big red house that you lived on, how far would the next house have been away? I mean, would it have been like a farm almost? It was like a...
Well, actually, there was a little, it's still there. There's
Right.
a little, there's a brick house quite close to it. But as far as we were concerned, it could have been in another town.
So it felt
We really were not allowed, Back then, property was very respected. I don't know if that's the right word. But you didn't dare go into anyone else's yard.
What about Longo's house? Do you remember that one?
Yeah. So,
The Beatrice's house.
it's still there. Yeah, right next to us. And then there's the gray brick house going down toward Valley, and then the red brick house right on Valley. And right now, all Tron Cones are living in Walker. My sons live one next door and one in front one. We're trying to get the name changed to Tron Lane or something. But that was the way it was. You felt isolated because you only stayed in your own yard. You didn't go into your neighbor's yards at all. And if you did, you were warned very quickly to get out.
And the house next to you, the house next to you is the big gray house. I understood that was a rooming home at one point in our history.
Boarding house.
A boarding house.
Years ago, yes.
When people came from other countries.
Right. They stayed there
That's
for
an
a while
1800s
until they
house.
got themselves a job, they got settled, and then, they move on. But I don't really remember that part too well. But I know that I've heard stories that it was one.
So, and Mary Kay, I was just kidding. Did you have a question
Yes.
you want to introduce?
For Jenny, Dorothy told me the story about how she got her name. And I think you were involved in giving her name. And I think that's really interesting with the history of the Italians coming to this area.
Well, Jolene was one. My mother wanted to name me Carmela, but because that was more with my ethnic background. But my sisters, they were here a while, and that was not a good name for this area. And so there was a woman who ran like a welfare agency. Her name was Dorothy Scully, I think it was. Yeah. And they thought that was a better name for me. I should be Dorothy. And that's why I'm not Carmela.
And you knew you weren't in Kansas. Right. I want to just take a second. I'm sorry. There's 2 young ladies that just entered, and I think you guys are you guys from Easton?
Yeah.
We want to welcome you. Would you just stand up and introduce yourself, because nobody knows who you are and why you're here. So just say who you are. They're from Eastern PA. They drove all the way here for this today.
I'm Liz Lynch, and this is Jen Stacy. And to graduate from our school, we have to do a big project on something. We chose to study documentaries and just how they're made in the process. So we're just kind of observing here today. Yes.
And I've been getting emails from them saying, I would very much like to come and see how you are doing your breakfast and to talk a little bit about the video. And of course, I'm honored that anyone wants to hear anything I have to say. So we're just delighted you made that trip. It was a hike, huh? Were my directions bad?
No, they were good.
Good answer. Do you need to get a refreshment? We'll be asking. Okay, we're in the middle of asking some questions. Mr. Rosen has a question.
This may go back further. Certainly anything I know about. We've been doing this charter study, charter change. One of the quaint phrases in the charter dealt with the swine and the ducks on the common. That was you mentioned in Fort Hill. I'm just curious as to when the regulation of animals, which was actually done in China, how long that continued and when it stopped.
I guess that's a question for our next one to get answered, right? But I do know, I mean, wasn't it Farmer Bloodshill? He used to, was that cows or pigs or
South Orange
grazing?
people was originally a lot of farmers.
Right.
It's changing, I would like to
Right. Meadowlands Park was at one point a garden.
My father worked in Jersey City for a little while, but he had a lot of friends that lived in Irving and in Newark, and my dad just had exceptional taste, not much money, but exceptional taste. He boarded in South Orange until he met my mother, and then they bought the house in North. Like I said, he was in running, so he really knew everybody in town. Because if you didn't go to Runnings, you were nobody.
Well, I think that's true, and in fact, you talk to anyone, and just about any generation prior, and that's the number one thing. They had their first kiss there, they held their first hand there. It was the social life. Yeah, met husbands, yeah. Now, you worked in Runnings, is that what I heard you say? Tell us what that was like. How many years were you there? And how was that? And from when to what period did you work there?
Oh, I don't remember when I started when I was in high school.
And which one? The one in the village?
All of them. Eventually.
He was manager in each one for a while.
Which was the first one?
The one in the village. No, they had one in Orange, Orange Street, Newark was the first one. And I believe the village was the second one. They had service. In fact, my father worked there before it was Runnings. It was called Schroeder's, I think. So he worked there a year before Mr. Running did.
Also ice cream?
Pardon me?
Was it also an ice cream
Oh,
place?
yeah, ice cream. They had a big factory in the back where they made all their candy and decorated all their Easter eggs. They made their own molds.
Well, here's an interesting connection. Your family had an ice house, did you say?
No, it wasn't our ice house.
In an
My
area?
father was running the ice house.
Your father was running the ice house. I wonder if the Grunnings bought the
They
ice.
always had dry ice as far as I remember.
Dry ice.
Yeah, I don't remember they.
Because they used to send their ice cream to Europe all over.
Really?
Fudge was
And she's trying hard. She makes fudge, not quite as good as Grunnings, but it's good.
And now, who worked in factories on Lackawanna Avenue? Is there anyone here who worked on the other side of Valley Street? Yeah, Beatrice.
We used to make speakers. I worked there for a year.
Which place did you work at, Beatrice?
Where?
Yeah.
On South Orange.
What was the location you worked at off of Lackawanna? What was the name of the business?
Oh, God, so I forgot. Fidelity was one of the names. Spear was another one. They made friends, eyeglass friends. And then what was the other one?
We used to make speakers for the radio.
Oh, yeah, speakers, yeah.
That was by the
The speakers, you know, the cone that goes in the speaker.
Yeah.
We did those.
Was that an Edison type factory or an Edison?
No.
No.
It's still there, it's right on the corner of one place on, going down is on the left-hand side, on the bottom.
It's a big brick building, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still there.
And that was the other thing that I think a lot of us don't know, is that there was a lot of factory life. There was a lot of substantive work life that, you know, I certainly didn't know anything about until I talked to you, Jenny. You're the first person that told me about the factory where you made the paper cones. And then I also heard there's another factory on 3rd Street, which is now the First Union.
Yeah.
Is that- right, and
They made creams for hair, removing hair, like on your face or your arms or anything. And salves. They made a salve for burns that nobody else ever had. It was really good. It was good.
Is there anything that you think you'd like to share from your history at Grounings? Just, okay, you just actually saw the kids come and go. It was the center of social life. It was the center of social life through many, many generations of kids.
I can remember when Mr. Grunning used to let us go to football games as long as we came right back to work. And everybody that went to the football game went to Grunning's. And he would let you stand on the tables and shout and cheer for an hour. As soon as the hour was up, okay, gang, out. And our generation did it, but then the next generation started maybe cutting the seats up or...
So I think that's a good
stop. He was very, very good that way. And he could get into the story. You know, he'd let the gang in, and then he'd send them out, and the other gang would come in, and we could cheer for the whole hour.
And that was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How could he have done that, organized all those kids in and out? I mean, that's amazing.
He was just a fabulous man that way.
He must have been.
And he also had a home down the shore that he allowed his employees to go to for a very small amount of money just to cover his taxes down there. And any employee could go down for, I can remember we were paying $35 a week. And then it went up to $50 a week. That's terrible. And you brought your whole family. You brought your whole family down there for 2 weeks. And Lava Latin. Another lovely town.
Now, was Mr. Grunning very secretive about his recipes?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, they never did, as far as I know, they never would sell the fudge recipe.
So did he actually make the ice cream?
Yes.
He actually made all those
And
years?
oh, no, excuse me, not him. He made it in his factory.
Yeah.
Another man from Germany made it. And you can see it coming out like you do Carvel now, but, you know, and then it would go into the pint quarts and everything, and then harden.
Was his factory in South Orange?
It's right behind the store, that whole building. That was the factory.
Anything inside the store, I did. If one guy didn't show up, I was it.
You also made the ice cream fudge.
Yeah, no, I
Birthday
remember.
party, you make the fudge.
Yeah.
You remember that you know the fudge? You know that formula?
No, I don't.
So fantastic. Do you know that I wish people worked for one? Yeah, they were letting it out, huh? That was fudge, I know.
Used to be well, my
share it with everyone, so, yeah.
A lot of kids and
I'm going to ask you to share that question with everyone, so that we can
I was
have...
curious about when I was reading your paper, the breakdown of the Irish and the Italians, and then this lady had said she was German, and there was nothing really there, but then she started to talk about Grunnings. Maria had taken her there before it closed. But I was saying to her, well, you know where the Italians went, you know where the Irish went. I said, I bet a lot of the German people went into their own business. I said, and then when possibly, like, did he employ many of the German people that came over?
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
Most of Greenwich was German.
Yeah.
And they, well, Schroeder, I think himself was
Right,
German.
right. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
And then we begin to see the building and blending different cultures within this community. And I think marriage through the church, people had an opportunity who were Italian to meet Irish, or other people who were also Catholic. And because the faith was strong, it was acceptable to marry not necessarily in your own nationality, quote, from your own country. No, not true.
Later on.
Not
Okay.
later on.
The church was very segregational. Yes. Initially. It was not a very welcoming to new ethnic groups.
Now, because when my sister got married, I could not, she married Catholic, I could not be her maid of honor. But now I have nieces and nephews, and they're all different religions, and they do.
Well, and that brings us to really pretty much where we are today. And before we kind of close this Sound Bites and Bagel Bites, I want to ask if anyone has questions before we go, because I know I'm very tight with the timetable. I'm very rigid. But I think that why this is so important is we're all here in this room from different areas of town, different ethnicities. It's all because we're all working on it together. And somehow the imperfect world may someday be perfect if we all continue to try to work together. And hopefully our little movie, when we're done with it, will shed light on that this community has always been that way, working towards that goal anyway, and that we can be pretty close